Hey folks, it's Fabrice. I've curated a list of the most interesting updates and teasers in the Avalon update for Ravenswatch. There's a lot going on with this update. Pastech released 2 trailers on YouTube, a dev diary on Steam, a dev stream on Twitch, and some odds and ends on Discord. After I reviewed these, I also read some community reactions by other Ravenswatch enjoyers. If you're interested in digging through all this yourself, I'll provide links in the description. Otherwise, here are my highlights, as well as some footage I found interesting from the dev stream. First and foremost, this release features the Chapter 3 map, Avalon. Apparently, Avalon originally had more of a sci-fi feel, but they reined that in favor of a more Nordic, Celtic style, which they mentioned is similar to the style of dwarven architecture in Lord of the Rings, which is a reference I appreciated as a Tolkien enthusiast. They also said they wanted to make it distinctive and give it a brutalist influence. All in all, it seems they took a lot of pains to make certain the map would feel polished and interesting. And although my education in architecture ended after an international humanities class in college, I appreciate the effort that went into the end result. The other major environmental influence is spreading corruption from the nightmares in the form of bramble barriers throughout the map. Also, as you progress through the map, the lighting grows dimmer and more ominous as you approach the boss fight area, which is a nice touch. Moving more to the gameplay, the map layout is unique among the chapters with a linear, structured design. I think this makes sense given that Avalon is a castle and would be designed in a specific way. The map is divided into 3 distinct sections connected by corridors, which are designated with staircase icons on the map. Corridors are like quarries and caves from the previous chapters. They're larger than the ramps you'd find in chapters 1 and 2, and enemies can spawn within them. They also said corridors may remind some players of Curse of the Dead Gods, another major title from Pastech. That goes over my head because I haven't tried it out, but good to know. I'm not going to try to go deep into the enemies from Chapter 3, but here's some footage to show you what to expect. Wolves, bigger wolves, gargoyles, witches, mages, and skeletons are on the menu. One enemy I do want to take a second for is the Fallen Knight. These are gigantic, armored enemies with wide AoE attacks. They seem pretty hardcore. The movement set reminds me of the final boss in Hades, funnily enough. I anticipate I'm going to die a lot to these guys, so I want to take a moment to be respectful now, because I'm probably going to be really salty in the moment. We also got to see part of the Avalon side quest, analogous to helping the 3 little pigs in the Dark Hills or saving Sinbad on Storm Island. In the initial phase of the side quest, the player or players come to the rescue of Morgan Le Fay, who is surrounded by nightmare forces. After defeating these forces, Morgan asks the heroes to assist her against her undead brother, who is reanimated by the nightmares to fight for them as the Headless Horseman. We didn't get to see the entire quest because the devs ran out of time during one run and got butchered during the first phase in the other, but I'm kind of okay with this since that means we'll get to experience it ourselves. At the end of the chapter, the final boss battle has a little wrinkle. Instead of 1 nightmare boss, 2 together. On a first look, I think this will be a pretty hard matchup. The bosses have complementary abilities, allowing them to cover each other's weaknesses and spam disgusting amounts of damage in all directions. The devs got absolutely dismembered in the showcase. That said, you're mostly going to face these 2 after scaling your character for 50 plus minutes, and it makes sense for Chapter 3 to be particularly challenging if the player's characters are level 10 plus. But more on character levels later. That's pretty much all I want to showcase for Avalon. A side note, unless a significant breakthrough occurs, localization for Avalon will be delayed until after the launch on April 22nd. English and maybe French will be available from the start. This probably doesn't affect me or most of you very much, but significant for some of the community, so I didn't want to pass over it. Wrapping up my reaction to the map, I'm really excited to get my hands on it. I do want to call out, however, that adding another chapter is going to make the game much harder, and we need to be prepared for that as a community. When so much content is in the end game, it can be frustrating to grind the first 2/3 of a run, only to lose due to unfamiliarity with the enemy's moveset in Chapter 3. Fortunately, Pastech has created some new modifiers that will let us experience Chapter 3 a little earlier, which I'm going to be going over later in the video. Also, these scaling challenges are similar to what we already saw before with the Storm Island update, and Pastech kept an eye on win rates and intervened by reducing enemy scaling when player experience started to degrade for the average player, so I think we can trust them to do the same for Chapter 3. If you're a more hardcore player, diluting your experience by reducing the difficulty for average players might be frustrating to you. I get that, but I think Pastech is trying to create a community for a wide variety of players, and that's going to help the game stay relevant and continue to justify their energy to develop and improve. There's more to talk about there, but let's come back to it later. Rerolls are also being introduced with the Avalon update. At the start of a run, you get 3 rerolls, which you can use whenever facing a talent choice or an item choice. Some items will give you additional rerolls beyond the first 3. This feature is heavily requested by the community, and in my opinion, it's healthy. There are similar systems in most roguelikes, including Hades, Risk of Rain 2, and Gunfire Reborn. Some folks in the community are concerned that this gives the player too much control and will hurt the replayability of the game. I disagree. Rerolls are still a limited resource and there's no guarantee you get exactly what you want from them. There are also some alternative modes coming with Avalon I'm going to go over later. The biggest benefit to rerolls in my opinion is that there'll be fewer situations where you have to take a talent that you don't want. Whether or not this will also allow players to always have optimal builds remains to be seen. If it turns out that it's too easy to play certain combinations of talents, Pastech can always nerf the number of rerolls you get or increase the number of talents per character, so I anticipate balancing this will be really straightforward. Speaking of talents, Avalon will bring with it 24 new talents, including some that modify your ultimate ability. These ultimate modifiers will be pickable at level 10. Once you're past level 10, you won't get any more opportunities to pick talents, but will continue to get more raw stats. If you didn't know, you get 10% more HP and damage on every ability each time you level up. Currently the game is capped at level 8 and it's not too hard to max it out, so this is a welcome incentive to keep fighting for XP in the later stages of the game. We got to see a few of these new talents in the dev stream, but I'm not too interested in collecting all those screenshots and theory crafting these right now, so let's move on to the items update. In my opinion, the talent system in Ravenswatch has traditionally been the game's strongest offering. Generally, talents require the player to adjust their playstyle for a positive effect, rather than just getting a cheap buff that you don't have to think about. By contrast, items have been a little bit more generic and uninteresting, particularly all the items below legendary rarity. Devs actually called this out in the dev stream, saying that they left items alone for a long time and they wanted to come back and spice them up. To that end, they introduced a new collection mechanic, where items have a unique effect when you acquire a certain number of them. Based on what we saw from the dev stream, it looks like you'll need 5 stacks per common item, 4 per rare, and 3 per epic to unlock the effect. Legendaries won't have a collection mechanic since you're only supposed to get one of them. We didn't get to see any collection effects in the dev stream, so to what degree this improves items remains to be seen. Funnily enough, I checked the maps for my last several runs and it looks like I've been skipping items for a while. They just haven't been interesting enough. This should make them more interesting and I'm excited to explore the possibilities. Also, if this system works, I wonder if it'll open up the possibility of having a certain variation of items, say like Golden Coat of Chainmail, Nightmare Thorn, and Swan Dash for a special effect. Now, if you've been playing Ravenswatch for a while, you probably recognize that this system is going to have a hard time getting traction given the Excalibur Grimoire meta. Well, maybe Pastech agreed because Grimoires got reworked. Let's dig into that. Prior to the Avalon update, you could choose to get talent levels, XP, or dream shards from a Grimoire. In practice, most experienced players would save Grimoires to the end of the chapter and use them to upgrade their talents. The cost to upgrade a talent from common to legendary is 350 dream shards, with increasing costs per level at each rarity tier. In a typical Chapter 1, having a red and a green Grimoire would give 6 talent levels. If you took these at level 4, and 2 of your talents were epic and 2 were rare, you would spend 400 dream shards instead of 1400 to upgrade all your talents to legendary. There's some risk involved, but all in all it was a very high value strategy. If you manage to snag an Excalibur on top, you got 40% damage amp as well. In the Avalon update, Grimoire choices have been completely reworked. Instead of the original 3 options, you choose from a selection of stat-based upgrades such as armor, damage, vitality, and crit chance, very reminiscent of consumables in the Sandman shop, though it seems their effects are beefier than the consumables we're familiar with. In the dev stream, the reasoning given for the change was that the options in the old Grimoires weren't really meaningful. Any experienced player would play for free legendaries, and the other options didn't matter. That's a fair take. Also, since Grimoire play was so strong, it stifled diverse choices in the mid to late phases of a chapter. The devs hope that this will generate more variety of play, and I support that goal. Right now, it seems likely that Grimoires will still be an important part of making strong crit builds, and getting more rerolls also seems very strong. The damage bonus didn't seem very good to me, and I can't speak with any authority about the vitality option, though there's probably some Wukong player out there right now rubbing their hands together gleefully. But something that tickles my brain is the armor. Armor is interesting because although it stacks hyperbolically, if you get Bloody Mary's Mirror, it turns into damage, which stacks linearly. There's also at least one new item in the game that buffs armor, so I have a high hope for finding some interesting builds with it. Of course, with legendary talents becoming much rarer, Excalibur falls off sharply. However, there will still be situations where you have 3 legendaries at the end of Chapter 2 and get offered it. All in all, I think this makes it a more situational pick, and that's a good thing. So are Grimoires too similar to consumables in the Sandman shop? No, because they changed the shop too. Let's take a look. When you go to the shop in the Avalon update, you're going to notice that talent upgrades look the same as they've always looked, but consumables are almost completely different except Gingerbread Man managed to stick around. In their place are a variety of choices that mostly affect your items or talents. I'm not going to go into every single one, but you can pause and read them if you want. My overall impression is they offer similar effects to the old Grimoire talent upgrades, but more limited and with greater overall RNG, because you can't guarantee what you'll get. Also, Sand of Oblivion seems to let you roll completely new talents of equal rarity for all your existing talents, and I'm very curious about how that will work. It seems like a very chaotic but exciting choice, and if you've managed to roll a super unsynergistic build, it gives you a way to dramatically pivot your playstyle. It's probably going to mess you up as much as it helps you, but it's a fascinating option. Also, the shaped-themed consumables carry on the spirit of the old Magic Mirror, while offering overall more consistency and control. These are going to be really important for getting item stacks, and depending on the effects offered by items, could be really significant for increasing the variety between runs. We also saw a consumable that gives the player a time-bounded buff. Personally, I prefer this style of effect from an intuition perspective. If you're playing games like Dota 2, consumables usually have a time limit or limited number of charges, and the old stat boost didn't really suit that idea. This system should make consumables more logical and approachable for a new player. If you're familiar with Aladdin's consumable builds, you're probably wondering how these changes leave him. According to my Memory of the Dev stream, they said Aladdin's consumables haven't been changed, so that should still let him do what he's done in the past. They also said they'd like to keep his consumables separate moving forward so they can rebalance around him independent of the Sandman shop. Hopefully they won't reel him in too much because we love getting those massive crits, but I agree with their sentiment. Consumables in their old form were in a tricky place since they were borderline broken for Aladdin and mediocre for a character like Geppetto. Have you ever been frustrated with the clock in Ravenswatch? Wanted to play a particular chapter, but not the chapters leading up to it? Is the game just too easy, or too difficult? Does the default dash in Ravenswatch annoy you? Pastech has an elegant solution: Challenger modifiers. These modifiers can be applied alone or in combination with other modifiers and provide a wide range of options. Some will make your run harder, some easier. I'm a huge fan of this addition. Right now, a fundamental challenge in Ravenswatch is that there's a crowd of players advocating for more hardcore mechanics, and another chiller group of gamers who want a simplified, more approachable experience. Challenges open the door to players to make the game whatever they want it to be. Now, there might be some unintended effects of this freedom. Some players are no doubt going to have insufferable opinions about what you can or can't do in a game, but people should be able to tailor their experience based on what they enjoy or want. The creativity this opens up is fantastic. This should also increase the diversity of communities that can come in and enjoy the game. For example, if you don't really enjoy the clock mechanic, you can turn it off and actually complete an entire run similar to how Risk of Rain 2 feels. We didn't see a teaser for this, but I kinda hope there's a challenge that increases enemy levels based on time, again similar to Risk of Rain 2 difficulty scaling. Also, if you're a Hades player and the way the dash works in Ravenswatch is really frustrating for you, you can add the modifier that reduces dash cooldown. Now, will these changes be better than the regular game? Probably not, but also better is subjective to the player, and variety is always healthy provided the range of options is not prohibitively complex or time intensive to parse. Currently, when players who try out the game suggest we get rid of the timer, there's a heated debate in the Discord where everyone comes together and voices subjective opinions about what the optimal gameplay loop should be for player enjoyment. It's utterly nonsensical because each person's experience is different, and what makes the game interesting for me might not make it interesting to you. Rather than entrenching and hurling opinions at strangers with a shared experience, let's let people try out their own thing and decide what they like. That said, the core gameplay experience should be somewhere in the middle, a compromise of what the majority finds intuitive and engaging, and there's space to experiment and advocate for opinions there. But for challenge modifiers, I'm very open-minded. Let's put some weird stuff in there, and let gamers experiment. Those are all the big topics I wanted to cover, but here are some odds and ends that I'm going to go through very quickly. Starting talents are going to be free pick. The way this looks is that you get all 4 starting talents as options on the first dialogue of the game. I don't know how everyone else will feel about this, but it's a pretty big quality of life change for me. Vajra got changed so it no longer scales based on level, but just does a flat damage increase per stack. This is good because a single stack was essentially as good as a talent in the past, and it could quickly take over the identity of the run. There are probably some people who will miss it though, so put some Fs in the chat for them. We got UI pop-ups on top of enemy health bars to show status effects. Bosses got an effect to show when they're enraged. Crystal spawns now give more shards, it seems to be about doubled. Avalon will be the last major update prior to launch, which I'm going to call version 1.0. The target for the big launch is Q3, though they're leaving the door open to pushing that timeline if they need to. Apparently no one in the Discord has successfully guessed a new hero that will come out in version 1.0. There are no additional heroes coming in the Avalon update, but the one at launch will bring the total to 9. Skins are planned in version 1.0, but not in the Avalon update. There will be voice chat in version 1.0, but type chat is not currently planned. In version 1.0, there will be options to customize matchmaking and blocklist individuals who you'd rather not play with. They do plan to add more visibility to stats like crit, but that won't be coming out with this update. A new chapter takes about a year to make, so the focus in future content will be on activities. Steam achievements will be added to the game at launch. Voice acting in languages other than English is unlikely since it's expensive and time consuming. They aren't planning to support recovering a save since it doesn't really help group play. There is a new stats screen coming, though it's not part of the Avalon update. The entire run post-Avalon is about an hour with Chapter 3. Part of the core design of the game is that you won't be able to fight everything on the map before the boss, so you can bet that the game will always have more camps and events than you will have time to finish. Dragons could be cool, but they told us that making dragons is really hard, so they've been staying away from it on purpose. Something they'd like to add is rewards for beating the chapter bosses early, but that's down the road. And that's it. Hopefully this is largely correct. Let me know what I missed, what I got wrong, and anything else players should keep in mind in the comments. That's all, and I'll see you in the next one.